Hello! Today is another book review day, and this week I have been reading The Dinner by Herman Koch. Herman Koch is a Dutch writer, and this book was translated into English by Sam Garrett, so I read the English translation. Obviously I can't read Dutch. And I will just read you the blurb on the back like I normally do. One evening in Amsterdam, two couples meet for dinner. They need to discuss their teenage sons. The boys have committed a horrifying crime caught on CCTV. They remain unidentified except by their parents. How far will each couple go to protect their child? All I can say is a brilliant book. Brilliant book. As some of you may know from my previous reviews, I have tended to just stick to general fiction in the kind of the library categories. And I thought, well, I need to kind of branch out and read something a bit different. So I've read some horror and some crime and some thrillers, and I didn't enjoy them as much as I'd hoped I would. I thought kind of branching out would give me, an insight into books that I would not have normally chosen, and I would have enjoyed them. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case so far. So I thought after reading a few books that I hadn't enjoyed, I'd go back to general fiction, and I'm glad I did, because this book is absolutely brilliant. On the back, as well as the blurb, there's some quotes from reviews that have gone in newspapers and magazines, and it describes they describe the book as deliciously dark, eye-poppingly shocking, powerful, illuminating, compelling, incredibly gripping, which you can't not read. When you see those reviews on a book, you can't not read it. So yeah, it is everything it says on the back and more. It's a confusing book. I won't lie to you. It is confusing, but I quite like that. I like something that keeps you on your toes and that keeps you constantly thinking when you're reading. Sometimes I like to go for something that's a bit, flatter, but something that makes you constantly think all the time. I can go for that. So just a kind of a brief overview, really. The main character, the voice of the book, is a man called Paul Wayman, and it's written in first-person narrative, which I love. I love being able to get inside the head of a character. When things are written in third person, you just kind of get a flat image of each character, but at least with a first-person narrative, you are inside their heads and you are seeing things through their eyes, which I just think is an amazing way of writing. So that pleased me to start with. So Paul Wayman, he's married to a woman called Claire, and they have one son called Michel. And Paul has a brother called Serge Wayman, who is a famous politician, and he's running for the position of Prime Minister. He's a bit like a celebrity. He's well known all over the place, and people stop him on the streets, and he uses his power to his advantage. And he's married to a woman called Babette. They have 3 children, Rick, their son, and Valerie, their daughter, and they also have an adoptive son from Burkina Faso called Beau. And the 2 boys, Michel and Rick, have committed a horrible crime. I won't tell you what it is, but it is shocking. It is really, really shocking. The boys are only 15 years old, and I think that's what makes it worse. You wouldn't expect anybody to behave the way that they did, but these guys are children. So it's chilling what they do. And so Serge organises this dinner for the 2 sets of parents to meet up to discuss what they should do about their children after this horrible incident. And like I said earlier, Serge is a celebrity, whereas normal people would have had to put their names down on a waiting list to get into this restaurant. He just manages to walk through the door and they let him in, they find him a table. Paul doesn't like that. Paul doesn't like his behaviour, the way he does use his power to his advantage. Paul seems like a normal, regular run-of-the-mill guy. He even mentions a few times that he would be happier in a cafe down the road eating spare ribs, because in this restaurant all you get is a plate with a tiny little minuscule bit of food in the middle, and he's not impressed with that. He's not impressed with how much it costs. He expects, food for his money, and in this restaurant he's getting barely anything to eat. So that's the main premise of this story. They've gone out for dinner to this restaurant to discuss their sons. I can't really understand why they're at a restaurant, because if you're discussing the behaviour of your children, that, you know, when they've committed such a serious crime, you wouldn't discuss it in a restaurant in full view of the public, especially knowing that Serge is a celebrity, because it's going to draw attention to you. But anyway, they're at this restaurant. However, the story jumps from present to past, to further in the past, to a bit nearer to the present, then back again, and it moves all over the place. And I quite like that. Like I said earlier, I like to be kept on my toes, and I like to be thinking all the time. And with most normal, not saying this isn't normal, but with most traditional stories, regular stories, and when you're being taught to write stories, you're told beginning, middle and ending. And this has a few beginnings and a few more middles and a kind of an ending, but it's not really an ending, it's left a bit open, and they don't necessarily run in that order, which again I really like. I like the crossing over of, you know, present and past and that kind of thing. So like I say, it did confuse me to start with. I wasn't too sure what was going on, but once you get into the flow of the story, you can see the paths that it's taking. So like I say, the bit in the restaurant is the main part of it. The present is the main part of it. But Paul takes us back into his own life. He takes us back to when Michel was a young boy, when his wife Claire was taken into hospital, when he himself was fired from his job, and he looks at all the kind of different situations in his life that may have contributed to Michel behaving the way that he did. Nothing is set in stone, and nothing is said outright as to why the boys behaved the way they did, but you're kind of given clues through Paul's history as to what has happened. The boys are caught on CCTV, and Paul and Claire are watching kind of like a crime watch programme at home, and it showed the crime on television. And although the images were blurry, Paul makes a reasonable comment that you know your own children, and even though it's blurry, he recognised his own son through mannerisms, through what he was wearing, and although no one else recognised them, he knew in his heart that that was his son. And to make things worse, this wasn't the only crime that they committed. This is the only one that's been caught on CCTV, but it wasn't the only one committed because they'd been recorded on their mobile phones and uploaded to YouTube. And both sets of parents just don't know what to do in this situation. Serge has obviously got a position of power. He's in the public eye. These are young boys. They're still at school. They've got their whole lives ahead of them, and they're not sure what to do for the best in this situation. So like I say, you get taken back into the past. You live through the dinner. Nothing is really resolved, but I like that. I like that open ending. I like when the author allows the reader to create an ending or to create what happens next. To be honest, I'm not fussed in which direction the ending could have gone, but I like how it's not tied up neatly for me. There's no little bow on the, wrapped around the ending. It's left open, and I really like that, and I try to write a bit like that because I don't want the reader to close the book and then forget about it. And with this one, you can't close the book and forget about it. You're stuck in this situation with these parents, with these children. Like I said in a review that I did before, I'm fascinated by how the human mind works. I've never studied psychology or psychiatry or anything like that, but it fascinates me what compels people to behave in a certain way and what compelled these young boys to commit the crime they did. And then seeing how the parents behave afterwards. How would you behave if someone that you love had committed a crime? You want to see justice served, but you also don't want your partner, your child, your friend to be punished because you love them so much, and you're torn. And like I say, you close this book and it can't leave you, because you empathise with the characters. I don't think many people could sympathise with them, but you certainly think, how would I behave in this situation? And not only do you find out about, you know, the boys, which I say is the main part of the thing, you learn about the relationship between Paul and Serge being brothers, the differences they have, the way they deal with things. It may seem like a very run-of-the-mill story. Take away the boys and the crime, and everything else just seems, you know, sibling rivalry. But it is fascinating. Like I say, it's fascinating to get inside the human head, to get inside the psyche of the characters, and you are able to do that through Paul because you can see things through his eyes. So yeah, it's confusing and it's all over the place, but it is gripping. It is something that you can't put down and you can't forget about when it's finished. And that's what they're elements that I really, really love in a book. And so I'm glad I went back to the general fiction, and I definitely think you should pick this up and give it a read, because it is worth it. It is so worth it. Another thing that I really love, and I would just mention this quickly, it's got really nothing to do with the story, but obviously they are out at dinner, and the book is divided into the sections of which stage of the dinner they're at. So the first section is the aperitif, and it's divided up into chapters, but then you move on to the appetizer. Where are we? The main course, etc., etc. So you see them going through this dinner and this almost facade of having to be, you know, presentable and putting on your public face, while this tragedy is going on in the background. And it's such a strange juxtaposition of smiles and heartbreak, all in the same thing. And it's just so well written, and especially because it's a translation as well. Obviously I don't know what it's, you know, the power of the Dutch text, but Sam Garrett certainly has done a brilliant job in translating it, because the power is there, the passion, like I say, the heartbreak, the trauma, the horrifying events, the accounts of everything. Well worth reading, so definitely recommend this one. And if you would like to hear more of my book reviews, please subscribe to my channel, where I also post anything to do with writing, really, writing advice, bits of my own writing journey, blah blah blah, anything to do with writing and books. So if you're interested in that, then please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.